going to get started here with Stephanie Gutierrez. And this podcast is called Building the Builder. And very interested to talk to Stephanie. Stephanie and I met, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8 months ago at a conference down in San Diego, where I I had connected with and seen Stephanie online, like on Instagram, because she puts out a lot of content about ADUs and just kind of middle housing product and real estate investing. So, I was putting out good stuff, and so we connected and commented on some things. And then when I saw her in person, I'm like, hey, I know who that is. And so I had to come up and chat. And so that being said, Stephanie, I wanted to have her kind of tell her story about her journey in real estate investment and in like this building ADU space. And so that's why she's here today. And so thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me as the first episode. I'm very honored. I know how much work goes into the back end of these podcast episodes, but honestly, I when I started my own, I did it selfishly because I thought to myself, if I want to create a network of ADU advocates and ADU practitioners, why not start a podcast and talk about it? Yeah, I was glad when we met. I obviously had been following you as well on social media, but as you know, the ADU space, the middle housing space is a very small space, and we have a lot of friends in common. And I remember I was walking with Andrew, and he was like, "Hey, Jared was asking me about you," and I told him, you guys should definitely chat and meet. And then we met at the IMN ADU and Forum in San Diego and obviously hit it off well. We're both passionate about what we do, and I just like to have conversations around that. I got into the ADU space probably like 5, 6 years ago when legislation made it a lot easier for ADUs to come about in 2017. But I've been in real estate for over 15 years. So prior to that, I was, managing teams. I was in the management space as well, managing property. And then slowly became, at the time, I was working with my brother's team and we were working with a lot of buyers, a lot of investors, doing a lot of volume. And I was strictly a buyer's agent. And working with a lot of buyers, a lot of people during that time had questions about how to offset their mortgage by maybe converting the garage or
Yep.
the building in the back. And I didn't know anything about what would be allowed or how to even go about permits or plans. No idea. And so I kind of took it upon myself to start s- looking up more about ADUs. And that's when I came across Cameron's Instagram and met Cameron in person. I started shadowing him. Soon enough, I started doing the feasibilities myself with him. And then soon after that, I mean, where we are now, right? I've helped hundreds of homeowners in both residential, small multifamily is our main focus now. And I also work with the property management company where we manage over 1,500 doors in Orange County. And so my model is I help investors buy, build, and manage, and then rinse and repeat the process. And
Yeah.
whether it's management for long term or midterm, I'm familiar with both strategies. And I showcase all of it on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Yeah, we're just continuing to grow in that path. And obviously, very passionate about what I do because it's a very specific niche within a niche. And I'm not just working in California, I'm also focusing in South Florida and a couple of other states that are adopting ADUs because eventually it will be nationwide. I believe
Yep.
it's going to be something that
100%.
really solves for middle housing on a national level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate that. Very, very similar to my own journey. And so, one of the questions that we have prepared is like, what project forced you to take yourself seriously and start to see yourself as more of an operator than maybe the thought process of like just just learning or just helping on the side, you know?
Uh, I would say it wasn't one specific project. It was a continuous cycle of meeting with investors and then having the initial ADU consultation and realizing that a lot of people, even till this day, all the consultations I have, a lot of people need to figure out financing first. And so I found myself figuring out, well, they don't have the financing structured yet, so I got to set them up with a lender. And then they come back to me, and then I got to set them up with either an architect or a contractor. And then after the completion of the ADU, then they want to rent it out. So now they need help with, screening a tenant or placing a tenant long term. And so I think it was a series of like different scenarios that really just made me think like, you know what, maybe I could really become the strategist and almost like handhold someone throughout the journey, because a lot of investors don't understand that in order for you to execute the strategy, you need to have a good understanding of, not at a high level, but understanding the planning phase, understanding construction, understanding management, understanding your long-term strategy, your exit strategy. And so I think it was a combination of that along with all of my like my experience, right? And doing this for so long that I can kind of like foresee, okay, right now they're stuck in this phase. They're going to need help right through all these journeys. And so that's what kind of took me to really take it serious and become an ADU strategist for people.
Yeah. And so the term that I use is like an operator, but like really this is your business model. And so that does make you like an operator in this space.
Right.
And so like for me, like I know that there was a definite shift at some point where I realized, "Oh, this is the thing. It's not a supplement to the thing." And so how long would you say it kind of took you to get into that spot where you really felt like, okay, I this is my thing and I'm doing this hard or whatever, like I'm in, you know?
Uh, I'd say surrounding myself, like, with the right people. I met Andrew around the time when I was learning the ADU stuff, and just surrounding myself with him and realizing, like, okay, the projects I'm focusing on, there's nothing compared to the ones that he's working on, really helped me open my mindset and stretch my mindset to what's possible and
Yeah.
really take on that operator hat and decided to just really, like, go all in. I'd say surrounding myself with the right people that helped me kind of push my mindset and understanding the law, right? Now, I think in these last 2 years, I've really taken the advocacy and the policy knowledge very seriously, whereas in the beginning, it was more of like, like we talked about it in your podcast, like, just reading it very vague and understanding it at a very basic level, whereas now I'm really taking it as a challenge to understand it at a very high level because I understand the importance of it, on the operation side, on the management side. It's very important. And not
Um,
everyone takes the time to do it.
100%. Yeah, we're was there any project that or any like mistake that happened in your process that like has helped shape your operating system?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of different projects. Each one teaches you a lot. When we started transitioning from residential projects to small multifamily projects, the feasibility was completely different and really understanding like utility upgrades and utility capacity was like something we weren't really aware of but was new to us. But consulting, I think I've always just moved with confidence because I've had great mentors in my life,
Yeah.
Andrew again being one of them. Cameron has also helped me build my confidence in this space. So I think a lot of it is like just taking action and learning as you go and then implementing those errors, or those issues and hiccups that come about into the next project and then like being able to foresee, hey, in this feasibility, we got to make sure that we account for X, Y, and Z because that's what happened in the last project. So each
Yeah.
project teaches us something different, and that helps us tighten up our systems
Yeah.
every single time. If we learn from it, right? Because learning is part of that. Is like, okay, that that decision caused this effect, so we got to make those changes moving forward.
Is there a specific process that you could pinpoint right now? You're like, hey, we used to do it this way, and today we do it that way, based off of like one of those mistakes or learnings that you had?
Yeah, I mean, I think every single project, but Specifically, the utility one, I'd say utility upgrades has been the biggest one in transitioning to multifamily because
Yeah.
we are trying to focus a lot on SB 1211.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that we're really focusing on this year. So we're still learning. I'm going to say in the
Yeah.
multifamily space, understanding the feasibility, the proposals are very easy to do, but that feasibility up front, that due diligence is what
Right.
we're tinying up our processes on when it
Yeah.
comes to multifamily.
And so, like, specifically, what do you look for the utilities that has changed? Like, when you're doing your feasibility, like, what's the piece of diligence that you didn't know to do the first time that you know how to do now?
I would say anticipating those upgrades, right? You kinda know more or less, like, okay, if there's a 100 amp panel, we most likely
Yeah.
gotta upgrade that to a
Right.
200,
Yeah.
right? But same thing on a smaller scale, right? If I saw a house with a 50 amp, we need 100 minimum. And so
Right.
it's just like little things like that that now we're able to foresee. If there's any power lines, also addressing those because that could be major. Any like driveway situations, things like that. I think it's like these little small details that have helped us from previous projects, and then we just kind of add them to our feasibility to the
Yeah.
point where I think our feasibility keeps getting better and better.
Oh, yeah.
Eh, right? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it has to, right? Because we can only, I mean, you can experience the same pain over and over and over again. Most people, we're pretty good at learning from the pain. We're like, yeah, we don't do that.
Yep, and it's mainly with small things on the site, but as far as, like, on the legislative side, we understand the law,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's to your point, like, we make sure that we're really implementing the state law, and then everything else kind of follows, and,
Yeah.
we work a lot with Long Beach. Long Beach is a great city, so I think also making sure that the biggest thing I've learned is, like, who we wanna work with and where we wanna work with, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another big part of the process because we are married to these people for months at a time. And
Yeah.
so having clear intention and clarity on each other's roles and making sure they trust what we do. And when we come across those hiccups, it's like, how do we communicate that to our clients? Because on one of our 12 unit projects, there was a sewer pipe that needed to be upgraded. And so that was a big cost for the owner. Luckily, he had the funds for it, but in many of these small multifamily projects, little things like that could be a deal breaker because we're talking 20 to 50,000.
Yeah. And can you share the biggest utility upgrade expense that you've experienced, like in any of the projects?
Well, the most recent one that I showcased was the 16 unit that we did in Long Beach. We added 4 ADUs, which was a conversion of 8 garages into 4 one-bedrooms.
Uh huh.
And two constraints there. One of them was the power line needed to be upgraded. That was about 50 to 60K. And then we had to upgrade the panel, which was about another 30. So
Yeah.
about 70,000.
Yeah.
That's just one of the other projects that we have. But I'd say
And
typically
so
it's
that
around
you
that
said 16 or 12 units on that one.
16.
And so this is 70 grand spread across 60 unit or 16 units that you didn't expect, which is it's money. That's not money.
Right.
But relative to the amount of units achieved, what's that, like 4 grand or 5 grand or something like that? I mean, per unit, something like that. So it's not insane, right?
No, it's not.
But it's still a lot of money, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Cool. I like that. That's a good example. And so right now, and I think we've kind of already referenced this, but what would you say want to frame this because of what we've already talked about? Besides utilities, what is other operational friction that's slowing you down right now? Like that's kind of hitting.
I'd say finding good talent and reliable subs, is a big
Yeah.
one, but luckily Cameron kinda takes on a lot of that load of being the project manager and finding and recruiting
Sure.
talent that could be trusted, that can deliver. That's very difficult, and I think not just for us, but for a lot of design and build companies, finding good talent is difficult. We still get friction at the local level as well with cities. That's
For sure.
never gonna stop. So I think that's something that we just sort of anticipate, but when you're very confident in the space and you done so many reps, you know how to reference the code in a way where now the cities kind of already know that you know what you're talking about. So,
Right.
and working with the same cities. So I think Cameron and I have really decided to focus on like Orange County. We would like to also tap into the IE if possible, but what
Yeah.
limits us from doing that is finding talent, is
Sure.
finding subs that we can rely on to be able to scale it. So staying local, hyper local has been probably the best thing that we started to focus on too, to help us tighten up a lot of the constraints that naturally are going to happen. But if we could
Yeah.
control some of them, is hyper focused in certain cities that we just continue to work with and continue to build relationships with and kind of have some sort of predictable system when working with them.
For sure. I mean, I think that that's a consistent constraint that we all of us operators see, right? It's like there is a reason that people tend to specialize in certain places, even if the laws allow for you to specialize in all the places, right? So
Exactly.
no, I mean, I that resonates deeply with me. I love the thought of an inch wide and a mile deep
Yes.
because, you look at Orange County, like that's like millions of people by itself.
Right.
And so from a perspective of like, well, can we scale or do we need to go to the Inland Empire or do we need to go to LA or do we need to like where do we need to go? And it's like, well, I don't know. How many units do you want to build? Because if you only want to build a few hundred units a year, like you can stay right in your county and you're doing great because
Mhm.
there's so much opportunity right there. And so that's one of the interesting things that I love about this micro development space specifically because there's just such a wide box of opportunity so that and everybody's got different goals. And so if the goal is to be statewide, well, then the Inland Empire makes sense or LA or San Diego as an expansion joint, right? Like that's
Right.
so no, I feel you. So the other thing that wanted to ask, and I think is really what has resonated with me over the last year, especially the effect that building and construction has had on me personally and business growth in general. And so, like, how does building projects change you personally? Like, what has changed about you or in you based off of moving into this space?
Oh man, it's been a journey, honestly. I think sales and business is such a personal growth journey because you really have to be self-regulated. You need to be clear within your own head before you can even operate other people's goals and bring them to life, right? So I practice a lot of ocean healing therapy. I focus on myself first and being able to self-regulate before I even tackle on the day. So, but it's taken years of habits and consistency and growth to really put myself in a position where now I can scale my own energy, right? And so being conscious of how I spend my energy, who I spend my energy with is
Yeah,
probably been the biggest impact in both construction, real estate sales, management of people, management of properties.
yeah,
Yeah, I've had to take care of my own self first and foremost before doing all the rest.
yeah. And is there any friction point specifically, like, or some inflection point that you could see that has changed you the most? And so, like, obviously, what you just shared is that journey that you've come into and are coming into that knowledge that you take care of yourself first. But has there been anything that was like this aha moment that was like, I learned this thing on this project or this relationship that just like switched the light bulb for you and said, I need to take care of me or or I learned this thing?
Yeah, there's been a couple, but I'd say transitioning from residential to multifamily really opened up my mindset to partnerships and, just other creative ways to, yeah, to partner up with people, but choosing the right partnerships. So like Cameron and I are working together on some deals, and Andrew and I have also talked about working on some together, but there's a very limited amount of people that I would actually do that with, because of the fact that I understand how difficult it is to find reliable people and good partnerships. So I think, yeah, it's opened up my mindset to a lot of things. This whole middle housing sector too has opened up my mindset in ways that I never thought would be possible. Like maybe tackling on one of my goals this year would be to be able to tackle on maybe 100-unit building and be able to add 20 to 40 ADUs, and so like the sky is the limit, and the limited beliefs just continue to get shattered every couple of months because I
Yeah.
continue to surround myself with people who push me to that level. And what I consider to be normal in other people's worlds, it's like nothing,
Yeah.
so I think continuing to put myself in rooms where my norm is like, or my what I'm trying to achieve is the norm for other people is really what I enjoy doing for myself, and that's been the biggest growth hack, I think.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I appreciate that. I definitely have found for myself that I've made a lot more progress when I get into rooms where my ceiling is below these people's floor, right? Like
Right,
they're like,
exactly.
"Wait, what? You only wanna make X dollars a year per project? Like, what are you realize that this is possible." And right? And so, like, that thought
That
process.
becomes your new norm now, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's one of the things that has done for me is really helped me step back and be able to see more of my own value and then stop trading that value for free and realizing that the de-risking that we do, like the stuff you're talking about, utilities, like that experience is worth a lot of money to people because look, at the end of the day, the $70,000 exist. Like, it's gonna happen either way. But
Exactly.
that expectation setting is massive so that for somebody that it is a deal breaker or like an aneurysm in waiting, like these thought processes, you being able to confidently walk them through that process, that has a value. And it's important that that gets acknowledged in the way that you deal with yourself and project yourself to that person. We're not always trading value on the cheapest price. Like we want consistency. We want like that self regulation. We want that when we're dealing in business as well. And so,
I mean, we even had this conversation, you and I, right? Because it's taken me some time to also get rid of some of those limited beliefs on my fees, right, for consulting, because I do get that a lot. And I thought my consulting fee was pretty good. And then I shared it with you, and you're like, you're giving it away for free, But it was like,
I
it was,
mean,
it was an
yeah,
aha moment where I was like, huh, like, okay, he's right.
easy.
First of all, he's right. Second of all,
Yeah.
boom, like, my mindset just was shattered once again, which is a good thing. Like, those are the small
Yeah.
conversations that make a huge impact.
Yeah, and and it's funny, it's easy for me to say that you're giving it away because I gave it away forever,
You did,
right?
yeah.
Like, and it's like, cool. And so now it's like, I set a price on my consulting, which that's not my goal. My goal is to partner with people and to build more units and to take on what we can. But I set my consulting fee at a very high rate. It's $10,000 an hour now is what I set it at because the reality is that's not what I want to do. If I do it, if I'm building somebody else's business, that's
Right.
not, it's one thing to like, you're my buddy, like hit me up. We're going to chit chat.
Mhm.
But for people that I don't know, like to come into my world to just get that thing, like that I have spent millions of dollars developing the knowledge that I have and angst and time. Like I can't give it away for free. And so you have still spent tons of time and money and angst going through these things. We can't We just can't give those things away. And so that thought process, though, valuing ourselves and
Right.
looking, you're very intelligent, as are the other people that you've mentioned, Andrew and Cameron. Like, we're pros at the things that we do. We can acknowledge that, especially when we get into rooms with people that have the same knowledge base, smarter on some things, maybe not as smart on other things, doesn't really matter. Like, the point is, we're all intentional in our space and we have value. And being in that position where we can admit that to ourselves and say, actually, how does this serve my client? That's the most important thing. You have to add more value than you receive, but we can be honest with ourselves if we're not receiving enough value from what we're giving and how long it took to get there. And so I deeply appreciate that thought process. And look, super awesome to spend time with you. And for people that are interested in connecting with you and following your journey, how do they connect with you?
I'd say Instagram is the best way. That's where I showcase a lot of the work that we do at Steph Sells ADUs. And eventually we'll see a lot of ADUs being sold, I'd say within the next year or so. So I intentionally changed my name to that because eventually we will be selling a lot of these ADUs
Yep.
and allow for more inventory to be created. So
Okay.
that's where people can find me.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on with me. And I'm sure we'll connect again in the same forum.
That's right. I will
Yeah.
see you soon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.